What happens when a drunken fool decides to disrespect a royal guard in the heart of London? Brace yourself for a wild tale of absurdity, karma, and a lesson learned in the most painful way possible. It was one of those raucous weekends in London when the pubs were buzzing with laughter, music, and the clinking of glasses. Among the patrons was Jack, a boisterous young man in his mid-twenties, who had spent the night indulging a bit too freely in good drinks and even better company. As the evening wore on, Jack and his friends hopped from one pub to another, fueled by a sense of adventure and, perhaps, a bit too much whiskey. Jack had cultivated a reputation among his friends for being the life of the party. With his vibrant personality and knack for storytelling, he could make even the most mundane moments seem exciting. "You think this is wild?" he bellowed, slurring his words slightly as he gestured animatedly. Already on his third drink of the night. "Wait until I tell you what happened last week." His friends cheered him on, egging him to keep the stories coming, oblivious to how quickly they were losing track of time and sobriety. Jack took pride in being the center of attention, but as the whiskey continued to flow, his judgment began to wane. He didn't just want to have a good neither wanted to create a legendary story. Their night of revelry led them to a popular bar near Buckingham Palace. The atmosphere was electric, filled with tourists and locals alike. As the friends settled at a table, Jack suddenly had a brilliant idea that would set the stage for an unforgettable, be it regrettable series of events. "Guys, let's head over to see the Royal Guards. I'll show you how to have real fun," he declared, standing up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. His friends exchanged skeptical glances, but Jack's enthusiasm was infectious. "Come on, it'll be legendary," Jack insisted, practically dragging them outside and down the street toward the palace, where the iconic Royal Guard stood sentinels, stoic and unflinching. The cool night air hit them as they approached the famous landmark, the beauty of the historical architecture contrasting sharply with Jack's reckless attitude. As they approached, Jack's bravado surged. The guards' impenetrable expressions intrigued him. "What do you think those guys are made of? They must be robots or something," he joked, his laughter ringing out in the night. "I bet I can get one of them to crack a smile." His friends chuckled nervously, knowing that they had to rein Jack in before he pushed things too far. "Seriously, Jack, they're not like regular folks. Don't get us kicked out of here," one of his friends warned, trying to steer him toward a less confrontational mindset. But Jack was too inebriated to heed their warnings. He saw the guards as an opportunity for a laugh and began to plot his approach. "You all wait here while I show you how it's done," he said, marching confidently forward, determined to put on a show. As he strolled toward them, Jack recalled a story he'd heard about how some tourists had gotten guards to break their stoic demeanors, prompting a wave of drunken confidence that made him feel unstoppable. "Tonight is my night," he thought, fueled by the alcohol and the laughter of his friends. Approaching Private Lewis, a young guard standing unwavering in front of Buckingham Palace, Jack made his move. "Oi, guard!" he shouted, enthusiasm bubbling over. The guard didn't flinch, maintaining his composed stance as if he were a statue carved from granite. "Hey, what's it like standing there all day? Do your feet ever get tired?" Jack slurred, laughter echoing behind him. The young guard remained silent, impassive, a testament to his training amid the boisterous atmosphere. He had dealt with drunks before, but had never encountered anyone quite as audacious as Jack. "Come on, mate! Don't be a bore! Smile for the camera!" Jack continued, leaning in. Loser to get a shot with his phone, only to be met with the same stoic glare. The crowd of tourists began to gather, drawn by the commotion, murmurs of disbelief coursing through the air. Jack's reason for being there was rapidly falling away, replaced by a misguided determination to provoke a reaction. As the awkwardness of his impromptu stand-up routine continued, he turned to the crowd, fishing for laughs. "What's a Royal Guard's favorite type of music? Guarded tunes?" He bellowed, eliciting scattered chuckles from the onlookers, but he craved more. Feeling the pressure to escalate the ridiculousness, an idea sparked in his mind like a shot of tequila to the bloodstream. With adrenaline pumping, he staggered backward and unzipped his pants as he prepared to relieve himself right at the feet of Private Lewis. "Hey, I'm just gonna," he snickered, confidence surging. The scene should have appeared comical, but instead it tipped precariously toward the absurd. The crowd gasped collectively as the gravity of his actions dawned on them. Now, without an ounce of decorum, Jack let loose, creating a puddle at the base of the Royal Guard's boots, the streams of urine splattering in shocking defiance of all social etiquette. The onlookers were stunned, unable to comprehend the folly unfolding before their eyes. "Look at that! Now those boots are fit for the royal throne!" Jack laughed, doubling over, oblivious to the seriousness of what he'd just done. Private Lewis, however, felt the heat rising from his cheeks not from shame, but from the sheer outrage bubbling inside him. "How could anyone be so disrespectful?" a tourist whispered, shaking their head in disbelief. Others pulled out their phones to record the unfolding drama, while a few began to shout at Jack to stop. "This isn't funny! Have some respect!" One older gentleman called out, his voice dripping with disdain. In that moment, the air shifted. Laughter turned to jeers as witnesses confronted Jack's brazen behavior. The camaraderie of the onlookers transformed into a collective desire to see justice served. But Jack, too far gone in his intoxicated state, felt invincible. Instead of feeling embarrassed or guilty, he reveled in the attention. "No one can touch me," he thought, his ego swelling as he looked around, expecting applause for his antics. Little did he know that the consequences of his choices were about to come crashing down like a ton of bricks. Private Lewis had encountered many things during his time as a sentinel, but had never prepared for such an abject display of disrespect. Though his training dictated that he remain calm and collected, the sight of his polished boots being sullied triggered something within him. With a swift and flawless movement, he snapped into action. "Hey, you!" Private Lewis roared, his voice booming like thunder cutting through the night air. The laughter evaporated into shocked silence. "That is enough!" He stepped forward, leaving behind the stone-faced guard persona and embodying the authority bestowed on him as a soldier. Jack, still caught up in his drunken haze, simply laughed louder, convinced the guard was about to crack under pressure. "What's wrong? Can't take a joke?" he slurred, staggering forward as if daring the guard to retaliate. But instead of crumbling, Private Lewis's eyes narrowed a determination set in them that Jack had yet to recognize. "You have no idea what you're doing," Private Lewis said, voice steadying as he took one step closer. "You have 3 seconds to move away from my boots, or you'll regret it." Despite the situation escalating, the guard's authority left little room for doubt. Ignoring the warning entirely, Jack decided to raise the stakes. "Come on! Is that all you've got?" he taunted, assuming that the guard was bluffing. "You wouldn't kick me? Who would do that in front of all these people?" But Jack was mistaking the guard's professionalism for passiveness, and in his drunken bravado, he pushed Private Lewis too far. The guard, trained to protect the honor of his position, took a resolute step forward. In an instant, the crowd gasped again as Private Lewis delivered a swift kick that landed squarely between Jack's legs. The laughter from the bystanders quickly turned into collective gasps of shock as Jack doubled over, reaching for the area where pain shot through him like a lightning bolt. "Maybe that will teach you about respect," Private Lewis stated firmly, his voice unwavering despite the chaos around him. The raucous laughter turned into cheers for the guard, many people witnessing an unexpected turn of events that gave them an exhilarating sense of justice. Jack writhed on the ground, overwhelmed by the combination of humiliation and pain. What just happened? He thought, struggling to comprehend the absurd reality that had unfolded. Am I really on the ground in front of a royal guard after pissing on his shoes? His bravado had completely evaporated, replaced by a sudden awareness of his own ridiculousness. The crowd erupted into applause for Private Lewis, their cheers drowning out Jack's groans. Some started chanting, "Respect the guard," while others documented the moment for social media. The spectacle drew in curious tourists and locals alike, eager to witness the aftermath of Jack's disastrous decision. "Is this really happening?" Jack lamented internally, suddenly aware of how quickly his night had turned from entertaining to deeply embarrassing. Recognizing the sea of faces watching him brought an unbearable weight of humiliation. Instead of being the star of the show, he had become the punchline. "Get up, mate!" one of his friends called out, helping him to his feet. "You've done enough for one night." But Jack, now painfully aware of how low he had sunk, felt like a broken man. Private Lewis stood tall and stoic, a symbol of dignity before a crowd who celebrated not just the guard's response, but the very notion of respect. Jack faced the grim reality that his antics had spiraled out of control, leaving him bruised not only physically, but also emotionally. Realizing the depth of his actions, Jack's downpour of bravado washed away, replaced by a burning sense of embarrassment. He turned to Lewis, now openly apologetic. I'm so sorry, man," he stammered. "I didn't mean to disrespect you or your job." Private Lewis, still fuming but seeing the sincerity in Jack's eyes, decided to respond differently. "It's not just about me. It's about every person who has made sacrifices to protect this country. You need to understand that what you did was unacceptable," he replied, his voice softer but still firm. The crowd murmured in agreement, and some even cheered for Lewis's calm yet assertive response. Others encouraged Jack to show further humility, suggesting he kneel before the guard and apologize properly. Jack hesitated, still feeling the sting of the kick and too proud to fully admit his wrongdoing, but recognizing the moment had truly become a lesson for him. With his friends pushing him towards the guard, Jack finally complied. As he knelt, the gathering crowd watched intently, and he felt shame wash over him. "I've learned my lesson," he said, barely above a whisper. "I'm really sorry for what I did." Private Lewis folded his arms, observing the vulnerable moment in front of him. "Apologies are only as meaningful as the actions that follow them," he said, nodding. "You need to earn that respect you've lost tonight." With newfound clarity, Jack rose to his feet, a physically painful experience and an emotionally painful realization. He looked around at the crowd, seeing echoes of their judgment and support. Whether out of sympathy or schadenfreude, he understood the fine line he had crossed, one that involved dignity and the importance of respecting those who serve. The crowd began to disperse, the spectacle of the evening waning away. Jack's friends rallied around him, disappointed in his behavior, yet relieved he had escaped the night with only a bruised ego. Reflecting on the experience later that night, Jack sat with his friends. "I can't believe I did that," he said, shaking his head. "I honestly thought it would be hilarious. I didn't think—" "Exactly. You didn't think," one of them interjected. "This isn't just about being funny or wild. We were in public, surrounded by people who respect those guards. You disrespected them all." Nodding slowly, Jack processed the consequences of his actions. The hilarious night had taken a serious turn, forcing him to confront the reality of his intoxication and foolishness. "I need to do better," he decided aloud. "I'm going to start respecting people more, especially those who protect us." The rest of the night was relatively quiet as they left the area. Jack felt a strange combination of embarrassment, anger, and determination. The exuberance he had felt only hours before had given way to agitation and the sobering reality of what had happened. Days passed, and the incident near Buckingham Palace continued to reverberate through social media and local news. Jack's antics had gone viral, meme-worthy snippets making the rounds, and he found himself at the center of an embarrassing but impactful lesson. At first, he resisted the urge to look at the posts floating around the internet. But eventually, curiosity got the better of him. Each meme made him cringe, the captions both mocking and insightful, and he felt a unique mix of accountability and resolve. The hashtag number #RespectTheGuard trended, igniting conversations about behavior, respect, and the dignity owed to those who serve. Jack realized he had inadvertently ignited a movement, albeit through an embarrassing incident that he would forever live down. As he scrolled through the posts, one in particular struck a chord. "What do we lose when we disrespect those in charge of maintaining order?" it read. "The potential for a stronger society built on mutual respect is lost." With each read through the comments, Jack felt a growing sense of responsibility. He began contemplating the potential for redemption in these moments. Was there a way he could transform the narrative surrounding his incident into something positive? Determined to take action, Jack decided to reach out to a local charity focused on veterans and service members. He reached out to organizers to express his interest in setting up an event, sharing his story, and giving back to those who served something he wished he had thought of before acting so thoughtlessly. It took time for his proposal to come together, but gradually the idea blossomed into a community event where people could come together to honor the sacrifices of service members and promote a message of respect and humility. "Let's make it a day of laughter, education, and unity," he proposed, much to the delight of the organizers. Months later, Jack stood before a crowd once more, but this time it was in a supportive environment that celebrated the spirit of respect. The event featured inspiring speeches, art displays, and even performances from local musicians, all with the underlying message that respect should be at the core of every interaction. As Jack took the stage, he felt a wave of nerves wash over him. "I stand here today not just to entertain you with my ridiculous story, but to acknowledge how important it is to treat everyone, the guards, our veterans, and even strangers, with respect," he began. The crowd nodded appreciatively, and he could see the impact of his words resonating. "I made a huge mistake, one that I'll never live down, but I also learned a valuable lesson that night," he continued. "Respect is about human decency." With renewed purpose, Jack turned a personal nightmare into a platform for positive change, fostering meaningful conversations. The day concluded with laughter, stories, and newfound wishes for a kinder, more respectful community. Through the chaos and embarrassment of that fateful night, Jack had come to appreciate something more profound than just a fleeting moment of humor. He learned that even the most embarrassing moments could become catalysts for growth and change in both himself and the community around him. And so, as he stood at the podium surrounded by friends, locals, and fellow community advocates, he found strength in the recollection of the previous events. "Karma may have kicked me where it hurts," he joked, "but that doesn't mean I can't use this experience for good. Let's remember to respect each other, especially those who serve." The crowd erupted in applause, every clap a reminder of the journey he'd taken. Jack had turned the story of a drunken prank gone wrong into a narrative of redemption, responsibility, and respect, a legacy from a night that had threatened to tarnish his reputation but instead became a pivotal point in his life. In the end, that wild night was no longer just a regrettable memory. It had become the foundation of his commitment to be better not just for himself, but for the many who served to ensure his freedoms and peace. With smiles all around, Jack walked off the stage, feeling a sense of fulfillment he hadn't anticipated. The path to growth sometimes began with humbling experiences, but it also required reflection, action, and the willingness to change. And as far as Jack was concerned, he was ready to embrace whatever came next, respectfully, of course.